Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of AI Insiders by AI Marketers Guild, and I'm your host David Berkowitz, and I actually get to be the featured guest presenter today. So I'm my own guest, and I hope I'll make myself at home in this community. You will make it very easy for me to do so, because this is one of these topics that I can't talk about vibe coding enough. I'm fascinated to know, and I am trying not to have 20 different vibe coding things going on while I'm doing this session. So I'll see if I can focus enough for the next hour or so. But I'm kind of blown away what can be done with it. And I'll just share one of the latest ideas that came to mind that was like, well, could we create resources that benefit others? And it could be related to a cause. It could be related to just something we value, like bringing people together, helping families connect better. All kinds of positive ways that this tech could potentially help others. On a whim, I created vibe coding for good, and so got the domain. I built this in base 44. If you haven't been playing around with the resources yet, I'll go back to that. Oh, I need to actually republish the site in base 44 because there are a few things not here yet that I was putting together, but there are a bunch of resources on here, and I tried creating just a test site. This is something that admittedly I was doing on my own without community input and just trying to see like, okay, so there were some threats against the Somali immigrant community, and so I was like, well, what would that look like if AI helped create some resources? And I did run this by an activist friend who had some ideas for what to do with it and how to hone things a little bit here. Again, I'm not sure that this whole thing is perfect yet. I'd actually want to do this with a local community org or just like give this to another org that could do something with it. But it struck me as something that was like kind of amazing to see how readily one could put something together that might be able to benefit others. And that was just the premise for today. So this is kind of an open conversation. What I'd love to do based on what we did in the last Vibe Coding 101 session that we did back in November is to actually do some breakouts, try to come up with either ideas for things, even like a quick vibe coding site, things that people could work on together or individually and do a little bit of sharing after. First of all, I just want to open this up. Has anyone worked on any vibe coding projects remotely like this that are in that like for good space?
It's still in build mode and conceptual mode, but the idea came from my son. He uses sometimes he relies on what's called an AAC device. This is for individuals who have speech difficulties and rely on a device to say some basic things. Like if they cannot rely on their speech, it's like, think of it as like an iPad, and it's called assistive technology. It has a bunch of buttons for simple verbiage that they might need through the day, and it taps on it and it becomes their voice. And it's very limiting to people whose thoughts are so much bigger than what the device can offer. So we have this book that offers games to individuals who want to practice speaking out, because a lot of it is anxiety and closes up your throat.
Okay.
So with the permission from authors, we're trying to put the games into an app that would actually be a lot more flexible than what this AAC device does. It's a very big goal, but we'll see.
Wow.
We're trying to put the games on an app, basically.
That's incredible.
We copied the games.
Okay.
We have an idea. We have a sketch. We haven't done it yet.
Is there anything that, like any tools, apps like you've been using with that you plan to use to try to bring this to life?
I am trying to see if, hang on, it's on my phone, if Replit might be a good idea. Because all it would need to do is give prompts. So it's very similar actually to the way qualitative researchers are using prompted questions with respondents. It would basically need to give prompts and have the person join a conversation with AI.
Okay.
So not too difficult. So I'm thinking Replit might work, but I'm open to suggestions.
Nice. Well, this is, I think, a good place to get some suggestions. Like the ones I'm most familiar with are Base 44 that I use for some more basic projects, but it's still kind of robust. And then I've been playing a lot in ChatGPT Codex to build like more full functioning applications, which I find easier than Claude Code, which feels a little more technical for me. And so there's everything on that scale of like technical to kind of like more like what you see is what you get. I mean, obviously,
I was wondering about that. It's just a more of a basic question, but can't I just do this? I get what vibe coding is. Can't I just do it with the AI tools I'm used to? Like, do I need Replit? Is there something so
well,
special with it?
like for ChatGPT versus ChatGPT Codex, like a Codex is designed specifically for building sites and
I
apps,
see.
and so there are even tools that come in like that can easily connect Codex to like a web hosting app or things like that, or connect it to GitHub and all these specific things. Randall, who I learned most of what I know about Claude Code from, is in the room, and I'm so glad you're here, Randall. So please put me out of my misery and cut this out.
Yeah, no, happy to. So the the fundamental model capabilities between Cloud Code and Codex and the things that are more on your computer working are really general purpose. They can do just about anything. So you can ask a finance question on Cloud Code. They're great at coding. They're great at doing a bunch of different technical things. What you'll see in tools like Replit, Base 44, Bolt, Lovable is that they are more optimized for creating kind of the products that they're developing. So that's going to be just a website. You're not going to ask Replit to analyze your financial statements or review a legal document, right? That Cloud Code can, but that's because it's a general thing. Those more purpose-built things have optimized additional code and structures and other things that they work with to make them better at doing that particular set of tasks rather than being something that's general for any kind of task.
And then just since it built on the questions she was asking as well, then what would you say is the biggest difference of trying to code directly in Claude, for instance, instead of using Claude Code?
Yeah, so a couple of things. It's really going to be on workflow. And Anthropic is working on this to connect the different systems. So when you do coding in on Claude on the web, it doesn't have a good way to get into a code repository on your computer to test. It doesn't have a good way to get into a server to host somewhere. You can create connections. You can do a bunch of things to mitigate that, but it's not. It's really still primarily a chat thing. Um, Anthropic is building out capabilities to allow you to work on the same code in different modalities or different tooling, whether it's web or app or even on your mobile app. But that requires a bit more setup and configuration to get that to work effectively. And so, in terms of an exploration, it's fine if you want to kind of just do a one-off. But what I would suggest is if you're trying to build something that is as a website, maybe it's an interactive website, maybe it has AI in the back end, which some of these providers now help with. Just do it in one of those providers. They're optimized for building out websites that are interactive, that are nice design, that have some AI in the back end. As you get more sophisticated, or as you get into other types of activities, maybe within a company, that's where some of the other tooling like Cloud Code or even much more sophisticated, complex options like agentic development, which you may have heard of. That's where that stuff can happen is more on the technical side. But we can, if you're building something that is fairly self-contained, those tools are probably going to be your best bet because they have the entire workflow of I want to chat with the app and make it do stuff and have it move stuff around and then make that available to other people. That's all built into how they've constructed their systems.
Anyone else who's already tried using vibe coding for good in some way or has some idea you think could be built that way and just want to use others here as a sounding board so can enjoy this kind of forum for it.
I think, David, it's interesting and great being here with the group as we talk about vibe coding for good, alongside, I think, a general shared interest across this group of people of learning, right, and getting more knowledgeable on how it works. I ran across, and I haven't actually done this, but I ran across someone recently as instead of just going freeform and creating something made up, right? Like you went freeform and created something meaningful that might have purpose to a charity or some other entity. It's a really cool model. Like if you actually know a non-for-profit or some group out there that wouldn't have the funding to bring in people to actually do this, and create your own pet project. Now that can get quickly out of hand in terms of overhead and time involved, especially if there's, not particularly it's for good and not particularly for compensation. But there is nothing better, which I'm sure most of the group agrees, there's nothing better than doing something like you did that's real, as part of getting the new technologies. So.
Yeah, I mean, there was someone who was telling me about some ideas she had for a new site just this week, and so like she was asking my opinion on budget for this, and I almost jokingly just went like this, right? Like, held up a big zero, where it's like, okay, not literally, but you can at least get especially for something more informative, a step up from a brochureware site, then you should get as close to that as possible, at least for a pass, like before you need to have a designer, developer, or others go and take this more seriously. And actually, there was even a partner at a boutique investment bank that came to me and said, "Look, we just got a quote, $10,000 to update our WordPress site, and then like all $1,000 these maintenance fees." It's like, we are brochureware. Can I avoid that? I'm like, here, let me try cloning your site and see what happens. And I got to say, I was shocked, right? And by the way, I did that in Base 44, not one of the even more sophisticated tools. I was like, wait a second. I did not think it would work that well while we're on this call. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know why the heck for their specific. And so it's like, if it's like getting a landing page for a kind of cause, a new event, things like that, that's, now X month, right? We want to do something that is all about this campaign that connects our cause to Black History Month, Women's History Month, whatever the most relevant theme is right now. We want to do this for Mother's Day and connect this to our breast cancer research, right? Like, this kind of stuff seems just so immediately achievable. So these are great points, Jared.
Yeah, I think I haven't worked on any nonprofit projects recently, but one of the things that's really kind of, nonprofits never have the resources that you need to build landing pages, and definitely they're the resource constrained, they're people constrained. So I actually played around with Qualified Code and created a landing page, not for actually one of my nonprofits, but for a company. Really was kind of impressed at how quickly it worked. Talking about launching it and making that within Claude Code. Claude Code suggested using a site called Netify to actually host it, and where you can actually create the domain URL for it. So actually it was kind of easy. I just uploaded the files there, drag and dropped it into the project, and I had a test page live, and now I just have to transfer the domain over and I can actually do it. But I think in general, some of the Yeah, definitely. Nonprofits are always constrained for building landing pages, but it's really one of the strongest things that you can do to increase conversions and accomplish whatever you want to do in terms of activation, as we all know.
Yeah, and this is where I actually learned from Casey Newton about Netlify for the first time. So it's like a pretty big web hosting site, but but when Casey Newton was talking about how his boyfriend, they just got engaged, I saw, or married. I just saw some big news on Instagram, but Casey was having his partner help him learn how to actually vibe code stuff using Claude Code, and he used Netlify. He used this terminal called Ghosty to help build it, and which I mean, I think you can use like the same terminal on your Mac for so my projects that I've been doing in ChatGPT Codex are hosted on Netlify. The ones on Base 44 are just hosted within Base 44, and then I've been buying way more domains than maybe I ever have because I keep connecting things to my vibe coding projects. It's like a yeah, that's been my biggest investment, buying these like $13 a year domains, and it's so this kind of thing. It's incredible just how low the hard costs are per project for these. I mean, I think it's also worth hearing from others. And Randall, I know earlier do anything like this, but stuff that you've been vibe coding. Yeah, it doesn't have to be directly in that for good umbrella, but things that might be just good source of inspiration. Is anyone just like working on any passion projects? It doesn't have to be specifically marketing related.
So I can jump in here, David. So I don't know if it would consider for good, but I've been testing out my custom GPT tree with a gubernatorial campaign down here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And one of the big things that we noticed as we were getting the campaign ramped up is that a lot of people aren't registered to vote.
Okay.
We have about 100,000 people in the territory, and 30% of those are active voters, as in they're those ones that are registered to vote who voted in the last 2 years. So one of the vibe coding projects inspired by you and your push for vibe coding was to create a site that's not funded or sourced by the government, but just to make it very easy for people to check if they're registered to vote, and in order to give them the information they need to get registered to vote as soon as possible by the right deadline so they can participate. Sorry for the background noise. I love life. But yeah, so one of the vibe coding projects I had in mind, just based on some of your recommendations, was creating, a user-friendly, simple to use site to check to see if you register to vote. And if not, these are the steps you need to take. Make it as easy and simple as possible so you can get registered and vote when you're ready to.
Yeah, well, I don't think there are many many better causes in any kind of democracy right now than encouraging voter registration and voter participation. And so I'd say that's very little that's for good is going to happen without strong electoral turnout. So Earl, that is awesome, and I think ideas like that are tremendous. And also, by the way, like the the ease of which one can adapt some of the work you're doing to other to other kinds of causes and themes is tremendous. Like I'll share an example that and I'll put this into the chat right now. So High Caliber AI is my consulting site, but it's also what I wind up using as my test bed for like anything and everything. And so I had this training curriculum that I had actually done for a cooking school, and a friend of mine's like, I'm actually working with some political campaigns. Could you potentially do something with this? And I haven't actually done this yet, but I just said, Base 44, can you go and take take what I did and apply it to politics? add a red, white, and blue theme. I gave it that direction. It probably would have figured that much out on its own. And it came up with all of these detailed things. What I really like about this, by the way, like some of this, the small touches here, like GOTV, if you've worked in politics, you know it means get out the vote. Right? And so it's kind of like insidery jargon that it already built in and makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about. Now, clearly, if I was actually going to go and do this for someone, or even do like an hour, 2 hour version of it, I need to review this in detail and see what they actually need and stuff like that. But to say like, yeah, if there's something that you've already put out there, and then you go into one of these apps, like, and yes, you could do it in ChatGPT, you could do it in Claude, or your app of choice. But if you're also using a tool like a Base 44 Codex, Claude Code, that you've already built something in, it's like, okay, now just reskin it. And like the number of sub pages I have on my site now for all kinds of different purposes, all kinds of different events, anything I speak at, like how quickly you can put something in market with all of it, it is just tremendous.
So I can I chime in?
Please. Yeah.
So the tools that I have is not vibe coding, but I actually, one of the target markets I've always had were political campaigns, creating media centers and then having AI as a way for people to inquire, and then having the RAG GPT behind it, where the answers only come from your own knowledge base and the answers that come out. So there are a couple of different aspects. You know, I've done a lot of canvassing for Bernie when he was running, and there are a few challenges. One is training, like you said, outreach, and there's a set of information, and there are usually gatekeepers for those information, and you have to find them to get it. They have these Slack channels, and people repeat the same thing over and over again. So to have a knowledge center where you put all of everything in there and people can just ask, and it's going to pull information and lead them to the source, is very valuable. If you have your own campaign material, you have appearances on TV, you put out newsletters, whatever knowledge and information you want to share, to make that easily shareable. So I always thought, and I actually met with Cornel West's team when he was running for campaign, but my product wasn't quite ready. And the people who were running it, they actually loved what I was showing them. But like you said, one of the things that you want to do in a political campaign is you want to empower everyone who is running to be able to share vetted information. And my KChat tool is a perfect solution for that.
And
so not vibe coding, but it's AI.
But like when you as a founder, right? When you're going to someone like a Cornel West, or maybe want to talk to James Tallarico or whoever's bubbling up today, and have you been using it yourself yet for like here's a quick glimpse about what this could look like, and here's
what I did is, and that's like what I've done with the AI marketers group, is I took a lot of interviews and content from Cornell, put it in there so that when they ask questions, they would then get answers and they would experience what it looks like. Absolutely. You need to be one of the challenges with political, the bigger ones. I remember back when I, was going after Elizabeth
Warren.
Exactly. Elizabeth Warren. One of the problems that they have is they're very conservative about, especially when it comes to AI. And if it deviates from their talking points by even, 1 degree, they're very wary of using it. So political campaigns always want to have vetted, especially the higher up that they get. But it's all a matter of having one campaign use it effectively and then replicating it. But it's, having vetted media centers, and for that purpose, it actually works great. It works really good. You can probably optimize the prompting a lot more, but to just pull information off of your own database and provide answers, I think is a very viable solution.
And is there anything, even anything that's held someone back from doing so?
I kind of build on that, David, and ask, what have you tried that didn't work, and what did you change because of that?
And I'll give a quick example there just to open that door, because like one of the things that I've gotten into playing around with, and I'll show you a failure in the chat here, but yeah, you could see where I tried to take something. One of the things I like doing sometimes is I'll find some kind of point solution and be like, can I vibe code this? Why or why not? And this was a case of why not? Because I saw a tool that did something like being able to track some public social accounts and then get alerts based on this. And I had some ideas that I thought would be like be particularly useful for a client I was working on. And then ultimately I was building all this. I was building all this in ChatGPT Codex. We were getting kind of far. I got enough of a working prototype going, but then ultimately it was I thought that the app I was initially modeling this off of was like just really hacked together and not that impressive. They since had a major upgrade, and so they're a little bit more professional now. What ultimately I came across was an issue of direct, reliable access to LinkedIn's data for being able to get some of these public LinkedIn posts. And it turns out when I went to explore, like, okay, what is this other app doing differently here? It turns out it was using a third-party data source, and ChatGPT Codex found the calls to this specific data source that the other company was subscribing to. And so being able to pay for that data made that app work. And so I was like, okay, on to one of my next projects, and I'll see if I can either launch or break that one. But it's a great question, man. Is there anything else where anyone like got stuck or wasn't able to take something all the way?
I tried something not for good, just for ego. So I use music AI a lot to help me do stuff, and I wanted something where I could say, here are the chords, or here's the music. Give me a guitar solo that actually sounds like a guitar solo.
Mm-hmm.
And vibe coded the hell out of it. What the challenge was, and I gave up after this, is that there are sources of harmonic structures that people, very, very academic sources that say these notes work with these chords. And it provided me with really academic sounding stuff that was horrible. And it became much easier to just go to Suno and strip out all the rest of the music and have it play the guitar solo for me. It was really access to data more than anything else that was the problem. The same way you were talking about. On the other hand, I did something where I read that there was a mood board thing that one of the big publishers had come out with. And I thought that sounds like it would be fairly easy. And it took about a half an hour of talking to one of the AI engines to code something. It's all in JavaScript and HTML. It saves stuff. It doesn't make any calls to anywhere else. It works really well. I kept saying, hey, could we save this? Hey, can I pick it up later? Hey, could we do this? Hey, could we do that? And it's actually a very usable tool. I posted that actually in the AIMG Slack somewhere. Anybody who wants to download it is welcome to tear it apart.
Awesome. And feel free to post it in the chat too if you want. reminds me actually of another app I was playing with that's more of a consumer app. You can see it here at innervoice.me because I'm a I'm a big fan of the interactive journaling app Rosebud, and I'm still using the official app, not my own in this case. So make of that what you will. But I was like, well, and this to me is also one of the exciting and maybe scary things because with Kevin in the chat talking about like what some of the moats are, where yeah, when I'm building these things, I'm not just saying I want to do exactly what this other thing does. It's like, oh, well, this tool is really useful for my workflow. If I could do X, Y, and Z, or the Y and Z on top of the X here, then like that would really hit it out of the park. And maybe there are other people with those needs too. So in this case, with Inner Voice, I was playing with Rosebud and like, okay, like I love this interactive journaling app. It's actually really, really impressive for that. Are there other ways to learn about psychological modalities in the process? And so, yeah, this kind of exploration, like I don't even know how good this thing is yet, but it's actually, it's actually functional, which is further than I got for other things. And then, I'm playing with like theological, philosophical treatises and stuff like, there's all kinds of weird things that I can just explore for the heck of it. And if it doesn't live to see the light of day, or if it doesn't come up until 6 months from now, and like I'm talking with someone about it, it's like, oh, I actually built something like this. I want to give it a whirl. This is the fun thing for me right now. And I love it, Mark. And it's also interesting having that kind of shared challenge. And so like, what are some of those moats? Well, access to data has been a big one for a long time. Like, I mean, Mark, I've been deep in the social media marketing space for a while, and even went over to one of those apps, Sysomos for social listening. And I'm not saying this about Sysomos or any particular company, but in general, there was so little innovation in that whole space, and there were so many great early stage startups that failed so miserably in that space because you had to pay for then Twitter's fire hose. You had to like pay for real access to Instagram. Like those costs were astronomical for stage startup. Yeah.
The other thing is that it's possible to find data, but we also got to think in terms of the ethical use of data and actually the legal use of data that's fairly easy to scrape. But you may be running into PII from some of the sources, and then you're getting into all of the regulatory nightmare that we're living in.
Well, and this also, when, when I was talking to the investment bank and I showed them how quickly I cloned their site, I'm like, yeah, the obviously scary thing is how I could do this for anyone and anyone could do this for your site right now. There's literally no way to stop that I know of. There wasn't exactly a way 20 years ago to stop that from happening, except now someone can do this while they're having a cup of coffee. So, yeah, I mean, anyone could have scraped some source code and done that before. The ease of doing so and then registering a domain that is off by one letter or includes a hyphen and then creating email addresses on top of that. And this is a group that I know has been hit by those crazy, those like, buy me a gift card scams. You get a text and they see you're working with someone. Oh yeah, I'm stuck in a meeting. Can you buy me a gift card? Yeah. This is Jane from Banking Resource, and I go do this and buy a $50 gift card to Pizza Hut, Walgreens, or something, and just send me the code. and it's like, geez, that's scary, right? Like, so So there's so there's like vibe coding for good, and then there's vibe coding just for like basic ethics. Yeah. And how you prevent vibe coding for bad is maybe above my pay grade. Other thoughts, projects you're building, I feel like another time we can go back to more of like the vibe coding 101 where we actually vibe code stuff on the fly. I feel like this is just better as a mutual learning session here on what else could be done with this. And but who else has learned anything from their vibe coding journey or attempt to do so? Randall, please, like you could be running 5, 10 of these a day anyway, so please don't hesitate.
Yeah, I'll talk about something I've learned, and it's not about vibe coding. It's more about me and how I think about things. And I've realized that where some of my particular strengths are don't necessarily lend them to how I think about vibe coding and some of these different tools. And so it's been really interesting for me to find ways to leverage those things that I'm good at while acknowledging and maybe mitigating through finding other people or other folks to help with those areas that I'm less good at. And so my background is product and technology, and I tend to go very deep very quickly to understand the mechanics of things without actually just skimming across the surface and understanding the surface of things, the shape of things. And what I found is that I can go in different rabbit holes very quickly, which is not necessarily as valuable as just being very surface and layperson in my language and prompting. So it's been a very interesting kind of observation for me in terms of how I work and think and communicate and how these tools respond to that and what they're able to do versus what I see other people able to do. If you want to continue that question is, for people who have tried different things, what have you found in terms of modifying your communication style or how you think about whatever thing you're working with? What have you changed to get better results from how you think about things?
This is Brad. One of the things I did when I did my first landing page was I actually asked Claude to do research on what typical landing pages are for that type of business, and I had to come up with a whole report. And what I did was I fed that into Claude Code. So I started out with basically, not knowing what to do on this type of landing page, but having it research it for me. Through that report that it creates, I actually fed that within Claude Code and actually used that information to create the page for me. One of the things I also found out is, I don't know if this is new or not, but Claude Code actually has a plan phase. So instead of actually using your credits to actually build the page right away, you can switch it from plan to actually to build, so that as you're planning it out, it doesn't build it in the background. It keeps on coming up with ideas and does the plan so that you don't waste those credits. And when you're ready and it's kind of thought through the process and saw something has made sense, then you can actually trigger it to build from that.
Yeah, I don't know where the raise hand button is, so I just
that works.
But like on that note, I've been toying around with a couple of like nerdy projects in Claude Code, and I've used the plan function, and I will say it is fantastic. It gives you the ability to put your stuff out there. Claude Code comes back with, here are the things I'm going to do. This is how I plan to execute it. And then it will often give you choices. So it's like, here's option A, here's option B, here's something else, or tell me what you think is different and what you think is wrong about this. And like, to your point, Brad, it then stops you from wasting those credits. I think also your point about having either Claude or something else do research and come up with a plan and feeding that into Claude Code is a great thing, because I've found with any AI, if you just let it go, it can go off on a tangent that is great for somebody else, but not what you want. And so, like, second to all of that, and I'm going to share, I didn't do this, but it was a something I saw on LinkedIn. There was a woman who lives in England. Her brother was coming for a pub crawl. She's got a PhD in data science, so she's not, necessarily vibing with all of this stuff. But she then turned that into the disappearance of local pubs And I believe she might have vibe coded the data visualization, or maybe she knew how to do it herself. Either way, the exciting thing that I took away from reading this is I can have a crazy idea about what is the good thing, what's something I can do for good that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to implement. And because of these tools, have the ability.
And Zach, appreciate your point in the chat. Like, is it up for users to go and use vibe coding for good? Because it's like, probably not coming from the top down from these from these major LLMs. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at some point if there's like just the way Google and others have like funded non-profits and various kinds of causes with certain kinds of ad credits, that there wind up being more like more of these kinds of credit-based systems, and if nothing more than just to make it look like they're doing some good in the world and papering some other things over, and maybe certain companies will come from a good place, but yeah, this is where where how do we collectively think about how to use this in ways that just benefit others. Yeah. And some of it could be as simple as just putting together some resources, just like making it easier for people to find voting resources when like there are some localities like Earl was talking about that might not be making that as easy as they possibly could, and actually benefits people across the spectrum, not just not just an individual candidate's campaign. All the stuff like Earl, I'd imagine your candidate, any candidate you'd work with wants as many people to vote as possible, and that's very much the greater good when it comes to something like that.
Just want to add one thing.
Go ahead.
The slogan "I have awakened the wonder" comes from this project. To have a media center, so especially when it comes to voting and politics, how do you get people out of their mentality or challenge what they're thinking by creating a knowledge source that may question or have a vetted research knowledge base to answer questions so that it may challenge their preconceived notions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to your point, David, one of the things, the idea is, again, this is not for a particular candidate, but I know that California does this a lot, where they have bills that they put out to their constituents, but having some kind of a forum where voters and supporters can come in and bring up their issues that that are targeting people. Like, for example, in the Northeast, the snow plowing is going to be a big one, for example. So I think maybe it'd be a good opportunity to vibe code some kind of a site where people can come in and bring up some of their issues. So that way candidates from all backgrounds can say, these are the issues that we want to focus on, and what are the things that we can do, policies that we can act that can help remediate some of the challenges that their voters are facing.
One of the ways that you can find out if you have a forum is the questions that they ask are the issues that they are concerned with. So it actually creates a way for you to really understand where people are coming from by the type of questions that they ask. And then you can respond to that with content.
Right, exactly. Other than that, you're going to have social media, whether it's you're on X or on Facebook. But one thing I haven't seen, whether in the United States or back here in the territory, that there's not a channel where people can address their issues that people in office can respond to, which is surprising to me.
And by the way, so that also can lead to a lot of structured information, which of course is great fodder for feeding LLMs. One thing I also can't recommend highly enough is, when using any of these vibe coding tools, is first of all, start asking them, how can I make this site or app more well, especially if it's a website or web app, more SEO friendly or more GEO AI optimization friendly. It often has a lot of really useful suggestions built in. Sometimes I will actually feed it a good article I've read about AI optimization and then say, hey, base 44, Codex, whatever I'm using, can you go and take some of these best practices and make recommendations for what to do? So you'll see some things like these highlight boxes on top of most pages on my own site that are designed entirely for AI crawlers based on a lot of the best practices I've been reading about. The other thing that is like super old school, that was one of the last steps along the way that I learned, because I was like, wait a second, like something still doesn't make sense here. How the heck is Google, let alone ChatGPT or anything, going to discover some of these properties I'm working on that I actually want to be discovered? And like base 44 is like, oh, well, you need to go and take a sitemap and put it into Google Search Console, and now you can go and authorize crawls of it, and now you can index your pages, and now it can tell you if and why any pages are not getting indexed. And so some of this really old school stuff for folks like myself who often just had other people doing a lot of this stuff for them, just one of these basics of like, okay, well, yeah, these apps won't always instinctively like create sitemaps and README files and other information that's really useful for these crawlers. And so then going in there and asking it for it, and then taking that other step until at some point this is just done automatically by them, linking that with Search Console and being able to go and give your site at least a shot at being seen out there. And it's just, some of the basics become really important. And so those questions of how to make this more SEO friendly, and also my favorite question to almost always ask with AI whenever I hit some like stopping point on a project is, what else should I be doing here? And then seeing, okay, of those 5 ideas, I want to do 1 and 4, like, go for it. Let's see where this goes. And with a lot of that vibe coding, there are often some great suggestions as far as how to take things further. And if you wind up in a situation where you have like on some of these things, maybe you have more credits than you know what to do with. I've mentioned in the chat, ChatGPT Codex, I'm on there all the time. I've yet to get a credit warning from them. I don't know why, because I'm only on ChatGPT's $20 a month plan. And I assure you, ChatGPT does not know I'm running forums like this. But if you have credits to burn, it's like, burn them. I'm going to go and wrap this up because we are at the hour here. Really fun discussion. Appreciate so many folks being able to share what you've learned, what you do differently. I mean, big shout out to Randall who gave me a hell of a primer on Claude Code, even if I'm not quite using it to the potential I could be, but I've learned a lot more about how to use other tools as well that I'm a little more comfortable with. But we have some incredible subject matter experts here, and Karan and Earl, and all these incredible builders here, tinkers like Mark. So this is a lot of fun. Like, keep discussions going in the Slack. If for any reason anyone's on this call that isn't in the Slack, I just put the direct click to join link, so you don't have to register or anything special. Right there in the chat. We'll be back next week. We've got Nate Elliott from eMarketer. We'll take a week off from Marketecture Live after that. If anyone's going in person, let me know. It'd be great to see you there. And then we've got an amazing schedule of guest speakers. Keep ideas coming my way and things that you want to see us talk about and do through AMG. It's just great to get to riff on things with you. And I love some of these more open-ended community conversations because you're all doing such cool stuff, and I love learning from you. So have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.